rubbish.
Rubbish story.
You're rubbish, and the story is the real truth of you of what you are.
There's no truth in this
This
story.
is the truth
It's
of you guys,
blasphemy.
what you are.
No.
And
Who are you talking about?
yes, you guys.
Who's you guys?
You know yourself very
you
well.
guys?
You know what yourself who you are.
I said that story is a lie.
No,
it's
it's
a big
not a lie.
Don't say you guys.
It's not a lie.
It
It's
is a
not a
lie.
lie.
It's a big
It's
lie.
absolutely respectful.
blasphemy.
It's absolutely
Don't know what you're talking
respectful.
about. No, it's a lie.
And it
Very
does not
disrespectful.
discriminate
And it should be banned in
any
this country.
religion or
100%.
anything.
It discriminates my religion.
No, it does
I'm a
not. It
Muslim.
just
I'm a Muslim.
it
This should
shows
be
the
banned.
truth.
No, it doesn't.
Of
There's not
what
one
you
inch of a
believe.
truth. It's
Yes,
all,
you are.
every single bit is a lie. Every single bit is a lie.
It's
And the
all
people
in
that
your
do it,
books.
They will get destroyed, inshallah. May Allah
It's
destroy
all
the
in
people
your
that do it.
books. It's all in your books.
Due respect, you're meant to be working, not abusing women. So go back to your job.
I'm not abusing.
Go back to your job and leave
I'm
us
not abusing.
alone.
I'm not abusing
You are.
nobody.
You
I'm just
are.
saying
You
it's a lie. It's a lie.
You want me to
They've
report you
abused-
to the council?
they've abused
Would
my
you like
religion.
me to report
They've
you?
abused my religion.
Let me tell you
No,
details.
no.
Let me tell
They've
you
abused my
details,
religion.
and I'll report
I'm
you
not
to the
arguing with
council.
nobody, but
Can you-
no.
Let me tell you details.
There you go.
And I'll report
You
you.
just said it.
You're the one being racist to them first. To their religion.
To my religion, she's been-
No, you were the one that came and started on them. No, you go away.
Don't talk about my religion.
You go away. Tell you
That's a
what,
blasphemy.
let me tell you details.
you're not
Let me
taking
tell you details. I'll report you to the council. Go and do your job and stop harassing people.
Don't talk in front of me.
No, you came over and started harassing them. We came out of the cinema.
Go away.
It doesn't. It's not strong enough to give me his badge number, though, are you, mate? You're good enough to go off with women, though. People like that.
That's why we want to let the people.
Was more to do with the fact that I felt that even if somebody else was directing this film, or if somebody else was making a film about Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam's life, I felt that we were still going to be too apologetic. And that we were still going to, in a way, withdraw from support for a film on the biography of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. So I know that a lot of people have gone on the tangent where they've said that we don't support such a film because of the people who are associated with it. Okay, I can understand that. At the end of the day, no one's going to force anyone to watch this film. And I'm sure there are even films in different languages where we may differ with the directors who are involved.
Sure.
But say there was going to be a film produced about the life and the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, would you still have a problem with a film coming or being released if it was from a different group of directors and producers?
Good point.
My issue was that I felt that we still haven't evolved to a level where we are confident about our narrative and have the readiness to have our narrative out there. I felt that there is still too much of an apologetic Shi'ism, which in some cases may be valid, by the way, because I do believe that while we live in the UK, you may release a film like this in the UK or the US or Canada or Australia, it won't necessarily have the same backlash that it could have when such a film reaches, for example, Pakistan.
Okay.
So I can appreciate when some people say that such a film or any film on Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, because of certain incidents towards the end of her life, I can understand when some people say there's no need to make a film. Because, for example, in Pakistan, some people may be attacked simply when this film is viewed. But also at the same time, I ask myself the question, I think people have to ask themselves the question, that why are we afraid to have our narrative out there of this lady's glorious life? Forget this particular production. Let's just say this production is one you completely disagree with because of who the directors are. We have our differences in some cases with those directors. They may not lose sleep that I have a difference. I may not lose sleep that they may have a difference with me. But when I saw people straight away, without watching the film, straight away condemning.
Yeah. Yep.
Relax.
Big
relax.
thing.
Straight away condemnation without having even watched it. Straight away there's a condemnation. Sometimes being condemned by the very people who've had majalis on Fatima al-Zahra or organized majalis on Fatima al-Zahra in the Fatimiyya period for many years. You raised us on Fatimiyya. And now all of a sudden you're saying that when a film comes out about Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, all of a sudden you're saying to us that, no, condemn it. Then why don't you stop Fatimiyya? Stop Fatimiyya. Because you're kidding yourself if you think that non-Shia haven't got a clue what we believe happened to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. You're kidding yourself. Exactly. We live in a world where the internet can go anywhere, to any majlis, absolutely anywhere.
Yep.
And then it will broadcast that here is a majlis, for example, in Arabic, in Farsi, in Urdu, and English. Why don't you scrap Fatimiyya altogether? Because you don't want sectarian tension, so let's stop Fatimiyya altogether. My point, therefore, wasn't about who the ones are who are behind the film.
Okay.
My point was, why are the Shia always getting so apologetic? A person may have a 30-part series on the life of somebody like Omar ibn al-Khattab. We remember a few Shahr Ramadans ago, there was the 30-part series on his life. No one was apologetic. People were proud of making a 30-part series on his life. Why can I, therefore, not have a film on the life of someone who I revere? You have your literature, I have my literature. Your literature presents to you what's happened in Islamic history in one way. My literature deserves to have a voice. Enough of this complex of being bullied. If you come to me from an angle of saying that something like this may cause sectarianism, you're living in a world now where everything that's lectured on is available for people to hear. No longer do people not know what us Shia believe. Everyone knows what our Shia beliefs are. Everybody now knows. And so, why not allow for our history to be made clear into a film? As long as the hope, as I've said, I've not seen the film. As long as the hope is there that there isn't a side to this whole production where there is condescending comments made, snide remarks, attacks. But rather, here is the confrontation that takes place. Here's the life of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Let the world see it. Those who want to believe it can believe it. Those who want to see it can see it.
Now, that's the reason. Now, that's one of the reasons I put that question as the first one, because
watching the film straight away, condemning. How do ulama of Ahl Sunnah justify Omar threatening to burn? Because the one thing there is no doubt about in the whole incident of the door is Omar threatening to burn the house that belongs to Imam Ali and Fatima. Whether he threatens to burn Fatima, those gathered in the house, the reality is that this house, he threatens to burn. How many grow up? And when they grow up in their world, they are taught about Omar ibn al-Khattab, but this area not taught about. This area will not be discussed. Why? Too sensitive. But there are some amongst the Sunni world who will justify Omar's threat. How do they justify? Someone says, how could you justify threatening to burn the house of Ahl al-Bayt? Baba, now in London, if I saw someone threatening to burn the house, wouldn't you call 999? Wallah, I ask you all a question. Wouldn't you call 999? If someone threatened to burn a house in America, would you call 911? I would tell you the area codes of police everywhere in the world, but these are the only two that I know. 999, 911. I'll say there's a person here who's threatening to burn our house. Police, what would they reply? Would they say, may Allah be pleased with him? Wallah, what do you think a police officer would turn around and say to you, may God be pleased with him? No, person will say, listen, we're going to have a word. So how do they justify Omar threatening to burn the house? This is interesting. First justification, you must hear this. This is enlightening stuff. Let's hear the first justification. They say that Omar's threat is only a threat. Not that he means to do it. I'm going to burn your house. But please don't take that I'm going to do it. I'm just threatening, but I'm actually quite a nice guy. I'm going to burn your house tomorrow. But I don't mean it, but I'm just saying, have you ever met anyone who tells you I'm going to burn your house and they're saying it as a joke? Have you met anyone who says I'm going to burn your house as a joke? Normally, if you tell someone I'm going to burn your house, normally it's something of a violent threat. So what happens is that they justify it by saying Omar has done this before and has never fulfilled what he has threatened. In the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba, Omar's son had put fabric, like an expensive fabric, drape, which at the time was seen as luxurious. And Omar blatantly says that if this is done, then I will burn the house. They say, but Omar never burned his son's house. Therefore, when Omar says, I would, doesn't mean Omar never did it. Omar threatened to burn the house where there was an expensive drape, which his son had bought. They said, Baba, this is a sign of Omar's modesty. And that Omar is against those, dunya and luxury things. So he said to his son, he said, I will burn the house if you have this. I ask you a question. If your son bought an expensive curtain, would you say, I'm going to burn your house if this turns out to be true? Wallah, I ask you all a question. Wallah. Of course, when they want to use the hadith in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba to justify their point, they use. If Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba attacks Muawiyah or talks about the door, that you can't use. But when you want to use it to prove Umar's height. So, I ask you all a question, everybody listening at home. If your son or your daughter bought an expensive fabric of a curtain at home, you could say, Baba, this is israf. True? You could say this. But will you say to them, Wallah, I'm going to burn the house? So, Baba, what do you mean burn the house? Are you okay today, Bob? What's wrong with you? What do you mean burn the house? I bought an expensive curtain. Please forgive me. I will not buy a curtain like this in the future. Umar ibn al-Khattab, they say when he threatened to burn the house of Fatima, the first justification is he has done a similar threat to burn a house, but he didn't burn that house. So why? This is just a threat. Second, they say Rasulullah was the type of man who would threaten to burn people's houses, sallallahu alayhi wa. They say that the Holy Prophet would threaten to burn people's houses. Huh? And they say Sahih al-Bukhari. The Prophet says when adhan time comes and we check people for prayer, I threaten to burn someone's house. Imagine, adhan time comes and you have not gone for salah. So what do you do? What do you do if you find someone has not gone for salah? You go and burn their house? In the Sahih, it says that the Prophet, peace be upon him, his family, adhan has come, people have not gone for jama'ah, then one of the things you do is burn the house. So they say if Umar ibn al-Khattab threatened to burn the house of Fatima, so did Rasulullah threaten to burn people's houses at the time of adhan. Third reason to justify Umar burning or threatening to burn. Say, Baba, Umar ibn al-Khattab, you have to understand, these threats don't mean it will actually actualize, for example. It will be actualized. Says, do you not remember Osama bin Zayd? Osama bin Zayd was asked, a lady stole something. They went to Osama bin Zayd, the tribe. They said, do you mind interceding for us with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the lady that's stolen? That Osama, have a word. Imagine in our community now, someone stole something. You come to me and you're like saying that, can you speak with so-and-so? When Osama went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, Prophet said, huh? When the people of high repute are the ones the punishment doesn't come towards, you are all silent. But when someone weak does it, no one helps them. No one thing. Because what he's trying to say is, if someone important steals, you try and get contacts to look after them. But if someone weak steals, Then what do? If someone weak steals, you forget about them. He said, by Allah, if my daughter Fatima stole, I will cut her hand. So you know what they say? They say, but did the Prophet cut Fatima's hand? No. So if the Prophet says, by Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, stole, then by Allah, I will sever the hand of Fatima. By the way, I don't believe in this nonsense hadith. Okay? There's no way Rasulullah would use Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam as an example that if Fatima stole, we cut her hand. But anyway, they say, you see, but did the Prophet ever cut Fatima's hand? Astaghfirullah. When did Fatima come near such nonsense of stealing? But what do they say? So when Omar ibn... Look at the justifications. Wallah, it's unbelievable. Omar ibn al-Khattab blatantly threatening to burn the house of Nubuwwah, the house of the Wahi, the house of the Risala, the house of guidance. And instead of saying that I dissociate from such an act, rather, wallah, I want to give my justifications for this act. Justifications? This was the house Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to walk past. Assalamu alaikum ya ahla bayt an-nubuwwah. Was not this the house? All the doors were closed except this one. Was not this the house where Jibreel used to come? Was not this the house where the Prophet sat? Does the Quran not say, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu la tadkhulu buyutan ghayra buyutikum hatta taslimu wa tusallimu ala ahliha? The Quran says, oh, you who believe, don't enter houses which are not your houses until you make it clear with politeness. We bore you someone's house. Say, Salamu alaikum, Ya Allah, before we enter. True? Instead, I have moments after the Prophets died, Omar ibn al-Khattab threatening to burn the house. 1,000 years later, no, few hundred years later, people trying to explain, but Baba Omar, when he threatens, doesn't mean he's going to do it. But you want to know the funniest one I ever heard? The funniest one. Omar is not saying, I'm going to burn Fatima. I'm going to burn over the house. I'm not going to burn, you people who are watching at home, I'm not going to burn your kids. I'm going to burn the house they live in. First thing, people will look at me and they'll be like, I don't understand. Wallah, did you just say you're going to burn our house? Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah gives a problem. The problem is that if Omar is threatening to burn the house, yes, the threat of burning the house, the biggest problem that you face is what? They say that not Fatima, over the house of Fatima. Why? Because Ali ibn Abi Talib and Zubair and Salman and others are gathering in that house. They continue to conspire. That goes against the government. And anybody who goes against the government should be burnt. That's Islam. Wallah, in your own conscience, that's Islam. Forget your love for Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. And part of the biggest problem in non-Shia is their love for Fatima and Hassan and Hussein is more because of their association to the Prophet rather than their merit. More their ilaqa with the Prophet, their relation rather than their merit. I'm not surprised Bukhari, you look how many children Bukhari has from Fatima al-Zahra. Wallah, lucky if you get more than one.